Hello, I'm Dan. Thank you for watching my video. This video will be a tutorial on how to set up a Vista-20P panel for 4-wire smoke power reset. A lot of times we see that the power is landed straight to the panel and it never resets power, or even worse, somebody puts in a toggle switch or a push button on the panel to reset power. That's not the right way to do it. The panel has what we need right here. So we'll go through this. This is a very simple procedure. We do have our 4-wire smoke detector. We do not have the end-of-line relay. Now, that's just for the purposes of this video. If you have a system out in the field, you absolutely need to have your power relay at the end to supervise power. You'll see that I took this detector off and there is no trouble. You will also need either a standard keypad cable that comes with every receiver and expander out there, or you can also use a trigger cable that will fit onto those pins there for the output as well. You're also going to need a programming keypad, so you can either use this, the keypad on site. If they don't have a alpha, you can hook up your old meter keypad that we've been using for years here. So let's talk about how this smoke detector is wired. The green and yellow, that's the relay of the smoke detector, is on zone 8. Now, this doesn't have to be zone 8, but it cannot be zone 1. There's a reason for that, a specific reason. We'll get into that here in a few minutes. So your 4-wire smoke detectors can be zones 2 up through 48. For the purposes of this video, we're going to choose zone 8. The positive power, that's this red wire, is going to go to terminal number 5. That is the positive aux power for your keypads. The negative power, the black wire, is not going to go to the negative here on the board. There's a reason for that. That's because it's never going to reset. So this negative power is what we're going to be switching through our output here to reset power. So that's how it's wired. One thing to note, we are using trigger 17 here on the board. That is this little row of pins up here. Let's see, it's a little dark. Let's get my flashlight on there. No, it's too bright. That's this row of pins here right underneath the processor. This is trigger 17 and 18. One thing to be aware of is you are limited to the amount of current you can pull from those outputs. In this case, we're driving the smoke detectors directly off the output. For trigger 17, you're limited to about 100 milliamps. That's not much. I wouldn't try to power more than 2 or 3 smoke detectors off of trigger 17. Trigger 18 is even more limited. You're limited to about 20 milliamps. I wouldn't drive anything more than a LED or a relay off there. If you have to go above that current limitation, you could use this to trigger a relay. We'll do that in a different video. But for this video, it's going to be just a basic setup. 1 or 2 smoke detectors coming off of the trigger 17. So for the keypad cable, that's going to be this yellow wire, and that's going to plug onto that far left pin. That's our trigger output. Now, before we can go any further, you'll notice that the smoke detector will not get power as is. We have to do some programming, so that's where our keypad's going to come in here. So you're going to go into programming here, installer code 800. And the first place we're going to go is field *80. And it's going to ask us for an output function. Now, this panel's mostly defaulted, so there are not any outputs currently. But if you're using an output or a relay to flash a strobe light or something, you might see some custom functions programmed. For this, we're not going to see anything programmed because it's blank. So we're going to start here at output function number 1. Okay, this is our summary screen. That right there, 00, tells us that that is available. That's not programmed yet. Hit start to move forward, and then activated by, we're going to change this from delete 0 to 2 zone type. Start to move forward. Now for zone type, we're going to change this from 00 zone disabled to 54 fire zone reset. Now let's talk about fire zone reset and what that does, what that means. That means that if there is a short on a 4-wire smoke zone 2 through 48, on the second code off, it's going to give a reset pulse on here. That will not reset for a fire panic on the keypad, and it will not reset for a fire on zone 1. Now let's talk about that. Zone 1 is your 2-wire smoke zone on this panel. 2-wire smokes get their power from the same zone wiring. So a fire alarm on zone 1, the panel says, hey, that's 2-wire smoke. There's no need to reset power. So you cannot have your 4-wire smoke detectors on zone 1. It will alarm the panel, but it will never reset. So that's why you have to have your 4-wire smokes anywhere from 2 to 48. So that is what fire reset does, fire zone reset. That's not a general purpose reset, so you can't use that to reset a latching glass break detector or LED. This will only activate when a fire alarm occurs on a 4-wire smoke zone, and then that zone still has to be shorted at the time you do the reset to get a reset pulse. So if it's a momentary fire alarm, if you just short that with a pair of pliers, you're not going to see a reset pulse. If it's a heat detector that restores, you're not going to see a pulse. So that zone has to be shorted on the second code off. That's not really worth knowing too much unless you're trying to troubleshoot. So we can move forward. We're selecting fire zone reset, any partition for the most part, and then enter output number. This is where we're going to enter output number 17 right here. And then we can move past our summary screen. Now that's it for output programming. There's only one more thing we've got to do. We're going to go to field 79 and enter output number. Enter output 17. Again, that's the trigger output of the board. And normally low. We need to change this from no to yes. So for what we're doing here, low means, is this normally going to ground? Is this normally active or energized? So this is going to be normally energized, and it's going to drop that ground. It's going to drop power when it gives a reset pulse. So we're going to select yes, and programming wise, that's all we have to do. Our zone 8 is already programmed for fire, so we don't need to do anything else. You can use type 9. You can also use your 16 for fire verification, but we're just going to do zone type 9 for fire. We're going to back out of this. That is all we have to do. It's that easy. Use your trigger 17, make it fire zone reset, and then set output to normally low. We're going to look for a power flash here on our detector. Now that we set that to normally low, it's getting its positive power and the ground through the trigger 17. Okay, so we got a power flash. Let's go ahead and pop that detector off. There's our fire alarm. Now the first code off will silence the keypad, silence the siren. Now you see though that detector is still activated, so that first code off just silences the system. The user can now go and investigate, and they'll see the activated LED. The second code off resets power for a couple seconds through that fire zone reset. And our fault here will clear in just a second. That's how that works. Very simple. Like I said, I would not recommend trying to run more than 2 or 3 smoke detectors off that output trigger. If you're going above that, or if you have to use a separate power supply, definitely run that through a relay, and we'll do another video on that here pretty shortly on how to use that. It's very similar. We're just energizing a coil to reset power and not the smoke detectors. So our detector is reset, we're ready to arm, and that's how that works. Drop your questions if you have any in the comments. We'll try to tend to them there as they come, and thank you for watching.